Still frustrated, he grabbed a howitzer shell that he had in the house and began to hit her.
And I just remember picking it up, and the first blow hit her above the eye in the middle of the forehead. And by the time I put it down, I don't know, at least 20 to 30 times I struck her with it.
Rifkin thought she was dead, but she wasn't.
I'm hopping around and she sits up. And that completely had me freaked out. So we ended up wrestling on the floor. I got bitten in the process. I still had the scar from that. And probably smothered her more than I strangled her. And that was the first murder.
He dragged her body to the basement. Minutes after committing his first murder, Rifkin went back to bed.
4 hours, 6 hours. And woke up, realized that, oh yeah, I did do it this time. And then had the problem of how do I get this large item out of the house?
Rifkin used an X-Acto knife to cut her body into pieces.
And I just decided to make the package smaller. It's easier to take it out in little pieces than to take it out in one big piece. So a little hobby knife and a little effort, made 6 pieces out of her. Once I had everything carved around, I just popped it with force. The hip socket and arm sockets just popped.
Rifkin drove around, throwing her body parts out of his car window along various highways. She has still never been identified. Then Rifkin went home and resumed his normal life.
I don't remember any rage, any anger, just doing it. That's the odd thing about most of these murders, in that I didn't get intensely enraged. They just took place.
For the first time in his life, Joel Rifkin was finally good at something. He was good at murder. After the first murder, Joel Rifkin was terrified of getting caught.
Whoa, I can't believe I did this, and it was driving down the block, I'm counting the cars. Yeah, that car belongs there, that car belongs there, you know, looking for the odd car. Driving past the house, circling back, you know, all this paranoia stuff.
But he kept his dark secret to himself and returned to his regular routine of living at home, mowing lawns, and seeing prostitutes. He vowed never to kill again.
I really, throughout that whole time before the next one happened, was, okay, that's not going to happen again. We're done with that. That was just, you know, had a bad day.
But he couldn't stop thinking about the murder, especially during sex. For 1.5 years, he was able to hold off the urge. Then his mother and sister went away again, and he brought home another prostitute. Her name was Julia Blackbird.
There were other girls in that interval also who I'd brought to the house, and they were all still around, as far as I know. So I don't really know what the particular spark was.
They spent the night at his home, then early the next morning drove to an ATM to get money. But Rifkin's checking account was empty, so they headed back home.
I needed to wait for the bank to open so they could manually check my balance. So we went back to the house, and we had to kill about 1.5 hours. Yeah, good choice of words.
This time, Rifkin used a table leg.
I hit her, knocked her out in one blow, and then strangled her for about 20 minutes, which I was basically strangling her corpse after a while.
Rifkin thought about having sex with her dead body, something he had read about while researching serial killers.
The thought occurred to me because I had heard of it, and then I shook off the thought and said, no. Now I'm making this dividing line in my head. All right, I just killed somebody, but no, I won't do this next thing. I won't, you know, which is, I don't know, it's odd, but the whole thing is odd.
Everyone likes to feel that they're a little bit above the lower portions of society. So I'm not as low as a necrophiliac, I'm just a serial killer.
Rifkin dismembered her body in the basement. This time he sealed the pieces in cement and dumped them in the water.
They went into various channels and rivers along New York City. To the best of my knowledge, they haven't found anything.
The second victim also hasn't been located. He kept some jewelry, custom jewelry from this victim.
Now, a killer for the second time, Rifkin became emboldened. Just 4 months later, he struck again.
The third victim, which we know as Barbara Jacobs, a white female about 32 years old, he picked up Barbara at 12th Street and 2nd Avenue in New York City.
Like the others, he killed Barbara at his home in East Meadow.
We had sex in the guest bedroom, and she went to sleep, and I was up and roaming the house. Debated with myself if I really wanted to hurt her or kill her, and eventually that impulse was too strong, and I picked something heavy up again, hit her on the side of the head, and strangled her on the floor.
Rifkin kept her body in the basement for 2 days.
The body had just begun to change. It looked like it was bloating, so I became afraid to cut it. So I found a mattress box, or some kind of narrow, long box, rectangle. So I slid her into that and dropped it in the Hudson River.
Her body was found shortly afterwards, but never identified, remaining a Jane Doe until after his arrest. Rifkin didn't care.
They were objects. You know, I didn't think of them as having anything else but drug habits and, you know, sex for money. In my mind, they never had families, never had anything.
These killers, over and over again, have an abnormal need for power and control. We all like a certain level of power and control, but they have an abnormal need for it. Why? Because it was taken away in their earlier years. So now they're going to react, and now they're going to try to overcompensate for that.
Self-employed, with no friends or social life, Rifkin was able to carry on with impunity. His family left him alone and didn't ask questions.
Mom was like, hey, as long as he's not moping, as long as he's out doing something.
His family pretty much were resigned to the fact that the type of person he was, a loner, kept to himself a lot up in his room. He would be out roaming at all hours of the night. That was a normal course for him, as far as the family was concerned.
A few of the women actually escaped his death grip, unaware of his fatal intentions.
One girl she managed to hook her foot around and lift me up to the roof of the car. And broke contact, and I'm basically dangling like a bug. And I relaxed, she relaxed, and she was like, I gotta quit doing this. And of course, you're probably like me, I gotta quit doing this, and the next night she's back out and I'm back out.
The first 3 murders had occurred with long intervals between them. But his 4th victim, 22-year-old Mary Ellen DeLuca, happened just a few weeks later. Rifkin says he didn't even intend to kill her.
We ended up in a hotel room. My thinking was, 2 people walk into a hotel room, 2 people have to come out of a hotel room. So I was looking for ways to avoid the killing.
In the room, DeLuca began to lament about her life.
She was saying stories of how she had just come out of rehab and now she's getting stoned again, and her life is crap, and this has got to stop, and I wish I was dead. And I was like, she didn't have to say much more after that.
Rifkin grabbed her throat.
So we didn't even have any sex. Nice, the heck with it. Never even started the sex act, just strangled her.
Now he had a problem. He had to get DeLuca's body out of the motel without anyone seeing.
Pulled the curtains down, do not disturb on the door, and I went shopping for a trunk like a kid takes to summer camp.
He got the idea to use a trunk from the same Alfred Hitchcock movie that gave him his first sadistic fantasy.
That idea I lifted from Frenzy.
The idea worked.
Her body, partially decomposed body, was found on October 1st, 1991, adjacent to a rest area in Route 32 in upstate town of Cornwall, New York.
Rifkin was not only killing more frequently, he was getting better at it. But he wouldn't get away with it forever. As the body count grew, Joel Rifkin began taking bigger chances. He murdered his 5th victim, 21-year-old Yun Lee, in his truck near the Williamsburg Bridge.
I just grabbed her by the neck and didn't let go. That was broad daylight.
Rifkin propped Yun Lee's body up in the passenger seat and took the expressway back to Long Island.
I had to get gas. So I pulled into the self-service gas station.